The United Arab Emirates and Israel have agreed to normalise relations. The deal brokered by Washington includes a promise by Israel to delay the annexation of Palestinian lands in the West Bank. The Palestinians, though, have reacted angrily, with the Israeli Prime Minister saying eventual annexation is still on the cards.
There is no change in my plan to implement our sovereignty in Judea and Samaria in full coordination with the United States. I'm committed to it. It's still on the table.
Palestinian leadership rejects what the United Arab Emirates has done and considers it a betrayal of Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa and the Palestinian cause.
However, some do suspect that the deal between the UAE and Israel actually targets another regional player, as Maupin explains.
Israel and the United Arab Emirates have formally agreed to establish diplomatic ties. Now, many see this as a historic move, as for many years Arab states have not recognized Israel as a country.
This is a monumental step to forging ties of cooperation in the Middle East.
Donald Trump's supporters say he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for arranging this. But the Palestinians aren't exactly thrilled with this new arrangement.
The deal between United Arab Emirates and Israel is a betrayal of the Palestinians, given the historical relationship that Israel has had with the Arab states. In other words, no peace, according to the old formula, no peace was possible until the Palestinian issue was resolved. And the Palestinian issue is not resolved.
The Palestinian Authority is now formally withdrawing its envoy from the United Arab Emirates. They say recognizing a country that is occupying them is simply unacceptable. Now, in the diplomatic fallout of this deal, we're starting to see what this is really all about. Aside from the UAE, Israel, and the United States, there is a fourth country that's now showing up in a lot of the conversation surrounding the deal: Iran.
Peace between the Arabs and the Israelis is Iran's worst nightmare, and no one has done more to intensify the conflict between the Arabs and the Israelis than Iran. What we see today is a new Middle East. The trend lines are very different today, and we see the future is very much in the Gulf and with Israel, and the past is with the Iranian regime. It clings to power on the basis of brute force.
Iran, often labeled as Israel's largest regional opponent, has denounced the deal.
The Islamic Republic of Iran is confident that history will show that this was a mistake made by Israel, and this dagger that has been unjustly thrust by the United Arab Emirates into the backs of the Palestinian people and all Muslims will lead to strengthening resistance and the unity of the Muslim people against Israel, as well as fuel confrontation in the region.
When Donald Trump visited Saudi Arabia, he spoke of building an Arab NATO that would work as a coalition in the region opposing Iran and fighting terrorism. And it seems now this historic deal is being revealed not so much to be about getting recognition for Israel or protecting Palestinians from annexation, but about targeting one of Washington's most long-standing opponents in the region.
There is definitely the antagonism toward Iran, and I think the timing is ideal given what's happening in Beirut and the fact that Hezbollah is now under pressure in Lebanon, with the government having resigned there. So we have a coalition building. This agreement, rather than easing tensions in the Gulf within the Arab states, will harden stances, or at least continue to maintain the antagonism that we have.